What's going on? What's going on?
We back.
Man, it's the Real AEF show, man. This is Frank, man. My road dog, AK-47, the kill. What's going on, brother?
Man, what's up? People been asking about us, man. They want to know what happened, where we been, when we recording again. So,
man,
we
these
can't disappoint.
Man, they don't need to know where we was at, man. We was out there living life.
In the best and worst ways, I can honestly say. It's been a lot going on since the last time we recorded and had some new material for y'all, but you know what? That's just how life throws it to you.
That's all right, man. And say, you know what? We're going to kick it back up, man. We got a lot to talk about. A lot of stuff is happening in this world, and especially in the wonderful world of race and everything that comes with it. We've had everything from shootings to people calling the police on everybody. It's just been crazy. So what we want to do is we just want to kind of get into it a little bit. Yeah, we're going to cover a whole lot of stuff this week. This is actually going to be the first of a two-part episode because I feel like there's so much going on right now. We just can't get it all into one show. So we're going to touch on some few things. Mm-hmm. Now, first thing I want to do is I want to give a shout-out to Nashville's own James Shaw. Man. I said that brother did it. Man, went out there, stopped the Waffle House shooter in Antioch, Tennessee a few weeks ago. I mean, and did it without a weapon, too. And it's funny how he was able to do that. You know, everyone says, oh, you got to have a gun. You need a gun. But this man was able to disarm a damn terrorist.
But of course he wasn't labeled a terrorist. He was labeled as troubled.
Oh, mentally ill.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah, we definitely got to talk about that. We just got a lot to unpack. When we originally did the show notes for this show, we had to push it back for some unforeseeable reasons, but we had it contained to only a few topics. But it's been so much that has happened since then, and even right now to this day is crazy. And that's kind of why we opened up with the song selection that you just heard. By the way, we don't own any rights to the music.
For sure, don't sue us. I ain't got nothing for you. I mean, you sue me if you want to. You ain't gonna get shit.
We just don't want the show snatched like we did with the other shows and stuff like that. So
exactly,
like I said, we're novices to the game, but we gonna get it together.
Absolutely.
Make sure we have the best quality and the updated material for y'all that y'all can relate to. But kind of going back to the subject matter at hand, what are some of the things that have caught your attention since the last time we spoke and recorded?
Man, I'll be honest with you. I don't know why the fuck everyone used to call the damn police on us every time they see us.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going out there. I mean, we could be out there gardening. Call the police. He's breaking in. I mean, we can go out and get Starbucks. We can go get Chick-fil-A. Call the police. We can have a motherfucking barbecue. Call the police.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's funny, too, because, you know, I had a conversation with a few folks about this as well. And it just seems like the more that this stuff gets publicized, the more that it seems to happen. And it's not just the incident that happened a few weeks ago at Starbucks, but also we had situations that happened in Oakland at the park. There's an old white lady that's pretty famous now as far as the memes, just for calling and everything else. But we've also had other instances. The young women that had the police called on them with the Airbnb.
Yeah.
You know, and that was an unfortunate situation. I'm glad nobody died as a result of those calls, but in a lot of instances, just because of the nature between black folks and the police, a lot of these situations can unnecessarily escalate. So it's something that it's been going on for a long time, but it seems to be escalating even more and more now, especially with the prominence of videos, social media. Everybody knows about it, and it almost seems like this is kind of the go-to move, you know.
It's funny you mentioned I was having a conversation with one of my homeboys a week or so ago, and this is just what it seemed like to me. It seemed like every time something happens, whether it's a shooting of a policeman to an unarmed black man, or if it's the incident we're facing now with, you know, being called, the cops being called on us just for being ourselves, it just seems like every quarter these national supremacists, these racist supremacists get together and say, hey, this is the flavor of the month. We're going to see how many you can shoot a, I don't use the N-word, shoot one of them. And then next quarter, hey, how many people can get the cops called and cops out there? We got incentive for you. So it just seemed like it's a fad. Maybe it's meetings going on that we don't know about. But every time, all this stuff just happens in waves. And don't understand it.
I don't understand it either, And the crazy thing is, even with all of this, this is an opportunity for everyone to kind of step back, take a deep breath, look at what's going on, and say, hey, this isn't right. But instead of that happening, it seems like the issues are escalating even more and more. And, we even look back at what's going on right now with the NFL and the protest and the recent...
I'm done with it.
Yeah, It was just dumb. I mean, we're going to put in a policy that says you can't bring attention to this. Now, you look at how the NFL has handled that situation, and then you look at how the NBA's Milwaukee Bucks handled their situation where one of their players was unnecessarily harassed, tasered, and beaten by the police. And they denounced that racism right out of the gate. And they handled that the way that it's supposed to be handled. And you kind of look at the two different leagues and you say, here's the NFL trying to suppress what's going on in the world and trying to suppress the players' right to speak up about what's going on in the world. And then you have the NBA who not only acknowledges that, hey, this isn't right, but they give their players a platform to speak on this as well. So I'm even looking at that, and it's just this strange dichotomy where, one side gets it, and the other side is they're more worried about protecting the feelings of their paying customers. And it's kind of crazy because guess what? There are a lot of paying customers who don't want to see the shit that's going out in the world either. But it seems like the NFL is only worried about protecting one side of that.
So even when you look at it from that angle, why do you think there are some people who protects or takes the side of the NFL majority to say, hey, you're paid to play. You're not paid to talk. You're not paid to stand on a political stance. You just need to go out there. What you're here for is pure entertainment. How is that defended in your eyes?
It's kind of crazy, but there's always been that dynamic there. A lot of fans, they take the side of management unwittingly. A lot of times when they talk about players getting paid too much, they'll say, oh, he gets paid millions of dollars just to play a game. He shouldn't get paid that much. There's always kind of like this negative backlash against it. And you see this, in the NBA, or especially in the NBA, but you see it in the NFL. You don't see it as much in the NHL and Major League Baseball, and for obvious reasons. But
ain't too many of us in MLB or NHL.
It's like why does this Negro get to make all this money? It's kind of like there's a jealousy factor, I think, at play behind that. Certainly there's a racial factor, but I think there's a big jealousy factor behind that as well. And because of that, I think that's kind of carried over. There's this resentment that these black players are getting paid so much to play a game. And, they feel entitled as a fan, to take the side of the ownership. The ownership is a reflection of them or what they aspire to be. And I think that's a big part of why you don't see a lot of folks, getting the big picture behind this. They just automatically say, well, shut up and play.
Yeah.
Or, hey, this is bad for business. Well, I tell you what, if the police were to go out and shoot up half the NFL, guess what? There wouldn't be a business. I mean, the business is comprised of 70% black players in the NFL. In the NBA, that total is about 90%. So this whole shut up and play ball, this shut up and dribble that mentality that's going out right now, it's crazy because guess what? Once the clock hits zero, they're back to being regular black men and women out on the street. Mm-hmm. And you know what's going to happen at that point? If your favorite player were to get shot, what do you think would happen at that point? If LeBron James were killed by the police, what do you think would happen? What kind of backlash do you think would happen?
Well, they're gonna, to my knowledge, he hasn't been arrested on anything, but they're gonna find the most discrediting photo of him that they can find.
He looks menacing.
They're going to take away all his accolades and say, well, you know what, maybe if he wasn't at this place or maybe if he wasn't with this group. They're going to circumvent and go all the way around the situation before they really, bring it home to say what it really is. Mm-hmm. And kind of speaking of LeBron, I think a couple of years ago, maybe this was 2 years ago, in one of his homes in L.A., it was vandalized with the N-word all over. Yes. That made a big deal to us, but, in other outlets, some media sources, and even with ESPN, it was hush-hush. It didn't get the attention that it deserved. So the backlash would be, NBA basketball player LeBron James was shot and killed because he was, you know what I'm saying? They're not going to say because he was black or, he just happened to be at the face of some cricket cops or anything like that. They're going to discredit him first and then go around and, give the, oh, it's unfortunate this happened. So it's never going to be one of those situations where they're going to put the nail directly on the head to say, hey, this is just shit. This is just what it is. It's an unfortunate situation. Some wrong people in wrong positions, did the wrong thing. I don't see that happening. And it's a sad commentary to say that in this lifestyle, while I'm still on this earth, I don't see that being rectified or the playing field being leveled on that aspect.
It wasn't really meant to be, though. You look at it, the rules really weren't meant to benefit us in any type of way behind that. And I think, when we talk about racism or not, people are always saying, well, why are you always throwing out the race card? Why does everything have to be race? And I think it's very difficult for folks to see that. But I also look at it like this. Everybody knows what racism looks like. We can go into semantics, we can go into history and everything else, but it's kind of like pornography. People know it when they see it, they know it when they hear it. So a lot of times I think it's a defense mechanism because, a lot of white folks, and I've had some of my white friends tell me this too, they're afraid to speak out on issues because they don't want to be labeled
ostracized
as
or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, they're kind of scared to put their toe in the water. What I tell them is, black folks are very smart, and they can tell when people are speaking from a certain level of authenticity about these issues. They can tell when you're being serious about it and you really want to know or learn more versus just being a troll or just being somebody who really doesn't give a damn about what's going on with this. So I always encourage them, hey, encourage my friends and say, hey, go ahead, speak up on it. If you see something that's not right, speak up on it because peer pressure is a motherfucker. And I tell you what, when white people see other white people that are actually doing the right thing and actually saying the right things behind it, it makes them think twice about what it is that they're saying and doing. Greg Popovich, the coach of the Spurs, Steve Kerr, the coach of the Warriors.
Yeah.
You look at those guys, and they have no problem using their platform to speak openly and honestly about what's going on in the country, not just from a racial standpoint, but from a political standpoint, and really just from a right or wrong standpoint. And so, I look at them and say, okay, be like that. Don't be afraid to actually speak out. If you know that it's wrong, speak out on it. And a lot of times I think, a lot of white folks, they're just fearful of saying the wrong thing. And I tell them, you know what? When you're speaking from the heart, you're speaking from the right place of mind, then, yeah, go ahead and do so. I say, we're not going to crucify you for doing that. Now, if you remain silent when you see injustices going on, then that's going to make me look at you funny.
Yeah. But now let me ask you this. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, one of my favorite games. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like with our white friends who, silently support us, and then, of course, you do have some on major platforms like some that you just named, do you think that those on major platforms such as coaches are bold and brave to do so because they know they have the money to back them up, they have nothing to lose, and they know if people look at them differently, their lifestyle is going to remain the same versus people who are not affluent or have these vast resources. They're just afraid that what can I fall back into if I speak my mind and say, hey, black people are experiencing these injustices, I may lose my job. Mm-hmm. How I'm going to feed my kids, how I'm going to, things like that. So do you think that's an issue when our white friends make the decision to speak up or not?
I think there's a big degree of truth in what you're saying there because, with those two coaches that I mentioned, those are winners. Those are multiple championship winners. They're respected in their field. So they have the platform. They know that they can speak out against, what's going on in this world. But you look at the NFL and you look at even the most successful coaches there, they don't really use their platform to speak out, for things like this. They don't use that, like Bill Belichick. You'll never hear him speak on racial injustice or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And a big part of it is, you don't want to believe that he believes in